Senator Coons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to our nominees and your families, your willingness to serve, and I look forward to our conversation today. Mr. Whitaker, I have an aunt and uncle who live in Iowa City. I'm familiar with Hawkeye football and your record there, and I appreciate your citing Ronald Reagan and his comments at the 35th NATO summit and your understanding of teamwork. And I think you would get uniform agreement from the members of this committee that our NATO partners all need to pull their weight. Are you familiar with the Article 5 provisions of the NATO treaty?
Yes, sir.
And when's it been invoked?
Only once in history of NATO, and that was to support the United States of America after it was attacked on September 11th.
And our then 29 NATO allies pulled their weight, deployed, served, fought alongside us, died. And I would argue that after Russia's aggressive invasion of Ukraine 3 years ago, they've continued to do the same. In fact, in total, they've delivered more support for Ukraine than we have. Support for refugees, support for their economy, and military support. If you're confirmed as you head over to NATO, I was encouraged to hear you say you view it as a strong and vital alliance and you look forward to strengthening it. Would it strengthen our alliance for us to abandon Ukraine and the uniform view of our NATO allies that defending Ukraine against Russian aggression is in our collective national interest?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Senator. Obviously, the situation on the
battlefield.
Please
be brief if you could.
Yeah, the situation on the battlefield in Ukraine is brutal. It's another land war in Europe. We have to end.
Does it serve our national interest to abandon Ukraine?
Well, what's in our national interest, obviously, is a broad question. We need.
Mr. Whitaker, I have 3 minutes, not time for broad questions. I'll simply assert, if I might, that from my view, and I think this is broadly shared on this committee, pulling in the same direction is what a team does. Showing up, suiting up, getting in the fight, and pulling in the same direction is what a team with clear-eyed leadership does. And whatever that was last Friday, I hope we can get back on track in a united approach with our vital allies instead of confusing them, dividing them, having a push for greater investment, interoperability, greater lethality of NATO as a united force would be a great mission for you. I am concerned that that is not the direction that recent conversations between President Zelensky and President Trump will lead us. Mr. Landau, Mr. Regas, if I might, I'm encouraged, Mr. Landau, that you come from a Foreign Service family, that you've served as an ambassador, that you respect and understand the critical role that our Foreign Service plays. And Mr. Regas, you spoke well about the skills that they develop over many, many years. I have visited our Foreign Service all over the world and am deeply impressed with their skills. And I've also visited USAID missions and programs and projects all over the world. And I will tell you, I am heartsick and angry at what I view as a chaotic, poorly executed chainsaw that's been taken to what are critical NGO partners and USAID work around the world. As my colleague Senator Shaheen said, we all expected there would be reform, that there would be a thorough and disciplined look at how to tighten and focus and align USAID's development work around the world. Instead, what we've seen in recent weeks has been chaotic. Thousands have been laid off. I have met over and over with NGO leaders who are saying that the whipsaw of stop work orders, waivers, and then the failure to turn the money back on across exactly those programs that were proclaimed as critical life-saving humanitarian programs has resulted in household name NGOs, Samaritan's Purse, Catholic Relief Services, Save the Children, CARE, laying off thousands, shutting down programs all over the world. If confirmed, will you commit to sharing with us the process you used to get to where this is, whether or not these waivers have ever been respected, and to work with us to make sure we do not abandon this critical tool of U.S. foreign policy in the face of Chinese aggression around the world?
Senator, this committee plays a very important role in helping fashion the foreign policy of the United States, of which these programs are a part. And so I certainly do commit to you, as I committed to the ranking member, to discussing. I would love to hear, A, what programs you all think are the most important and that you see have the most effect on, in terms of the constituents you know and the broader effect. And second, making sure, to the point you just raised, Senator, that the implementation is done appropriately. If there's a waiver granted, to make sure that that money is actually flowing again.
I have not heard of a single example of a waiver being granted and the funding being turned back on, which is utterly unsurprising, given that all the critical staff who facilitate payments and funding transfers have been laid off, furloughed, or sidelined. So we have literally just unilaterally disarmed one of the most vital tools in that work to deliver peace through strength in the face of Chinese aggression. I'm glad that Senator Risch recognized, as we all do, that China is expanding its influence in Latin America, in the Caribbean, in Africa, in Southeast Asia. And we have confused our partners, we have encouraged our adversaries, and abandoning exactly those Americans who have spent decades overseas and then leaving that space, whether it's confronting human trafficking, working against terrorists, combating pandemics, or pushing back against Russia and China and their malign influence in the world. This was a horrible owned goal that I eagerly want to work with you to try and address, because frankly, tens of billions of dollars have been cut in the name of pursuing a few million of dollars here and there that, yes, we can all agree shouldn't have been spent the way they were spent. But if thousands have been laid off, programs in dozens and dozens of countries have been shut down, and we have abandoned a key tool of our success in the Cold War that presidents from Kennedy to Reagan recognized as critical tools in our toolbox, then we have made a profound error that is going to produce weakness through chaos, not peace through strength. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Coons. I think you're, just as Senator Shaheen indicated, the sooner we get these guys in place, the sooner we'll be able to rectify some of these things. So with that, I'm going to move to Senator McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Shaheen. And thank you to the nominees for appearing before us at what is undoubtedly an incredibly